Okay, are we live? It looks like we are. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Happy Sunday. So, this is a rare occurrence to have a live on a Sunday, but we are right in the thick of the 12 days of spiritual brand archetypes. So, I'm going to wait a couple minutes until I see people pop on until we dive into all of the content. But for anyone catching the replay, hello. Thank you for watching. So if this is the first live that you're watching in this series, we are doing the 12 days of spiritual brand archetypes. So every single day for 12 days, we are diving into the details of one of the brand archetypes. So we are on day 7 now, and we're going to dive into the Harmonizer, who is linked with Libra rising. Hi, Sherry. Yeah. Sherry is the Harmonizer archetype. I know that for sure. So if you're watching, say hi. Looks like comments are coming in just fine today. It's always a gamble to see if comments want to show up. But it's going to be a really great conversation today. So, what we've been doing for these trainings is talking about the archetype, really talking about the brand archetype system to make sure that we all really understand how that works. I find the more that we can talk about it, the more that we can, explain it in a million different ways, the more it really lands and we start to see how truly magical and powerful aligning to and using our brand archetype is. And then the more that we can understand our brand archetype, which is this programming that already exists within us, the more we can start to see and recognize and awaken and strengthen that part of ourselves. And then I've been looking at human design charts for each of the archetypes and looking at the clues and the guidance and the breadcrumbs and whatnot that our human design charts have to offer around that archetype. So I've been looking at different parts of the human design chart on each of these trainings for each of the archetypes, because I do think that there are different places to start with in the chart for wisdom and all the things. So cool. If you're on, say hi. I'm going to pull up my conversation in a different window as well so I can make sure I can see everything. And let me know too if you are the Harmonizer archetype in the comments, whether you are live with me or watching the replay. In 1 second, I'm going to pull up the thread with your charts and we will dive right in. So, one thing about the Harmonizer, I used to call her the humanitarian, and it was a really interesting exploration, I guess you could say, an interesting thing to watch because everyone, not always, but 9 times out of 10, all of my clients would react with this really big, excited reaction like, oh my gosh, that really resonates with me, my brand archetype. For all of them except for the humanitarian, of what I was calling her previously. Occasionally there would be someone that was like, yeah, that's me, but most of the time it didn't really land in this big way. Where when we really do understand our archetype and we understand our rising sign and we understand that part of ourself, it usually tends to be this big, like, yeah, oh my gosh, yes, like, thank you for reminding me, right? Thank you for those words, like, this is me. But the humanitarian seemed like it was falling flat each time. So I went back in to the essence of this archetype, to the bones of this archetype, and decided to rename her, to rebrand her as the Harmonizer. And so now when people hear this, they tend to say, yeah, I don't really know what that means, but yes, that feels like me. That feels like home. So with the Harmonizer, so she is linked with Libra rising. We use your rising sign, which is also known as your ascendant sign, to determine what your brand archetype is, because your rising sign is essentially who your soul came here to be. So the way that I like to explain that is it is your highest potential explained, right? It is putting words, putting a story, putting a timeline, or not a timeline, but a storyline rather, to your highest potential. What is available for you if you choose it, right? If you want to pursue a life where you're continually evolving, continually getting stronger, continually unleashing that part of you that is here to create magic during this lifetime. And that can all be explained and understood by looking at our rising sign. So your rising sign is going to be found in your natal chart, in your astrology chart. I usually just Google free astrology chart, rising sign or ascendant sign, and you'll find it. So then we figure out what your brand archetype is based on your rising sign. So with the Harmonizer, she is Libra rising. Libra rising, so Libra in general is linked with two main things. First one is balance, right? Her symbol, the symbol for Libra, is a scale. So balance is really, really important to this archetype. And also, the second most profound essence, description of this archetype is connection with other people. So we hear this a lot, we see this a lot with Libras. Like there's always some kind of partnership, there's always some kind of relationship, some kind of collaboration, some kind of connection that they have with other people. Like I've seen it so much as people like Libras themselves saying like, of course, like I went to get a sandwich with another person. Like I'm a Libra. Of course I went on a trip with another person. I'm a Libra. Like I would never travel alone. I would never go out to eat alone. I would never go to the movies alone. Like I'm a Libra. So we tend to hear that. It's not always the case, right? It's not a blanket statement, but Libra really, really finds that balance and finds that connection through other people most of the time. So that's why originally I was calling her the humanitarian. That is an expression of the harmonizer still. So if you resonate with that and you're like, I am a humanitarian, that is what I'm here to do. I'm here to be an advocate for people, for humanity, right? For the collective, then that's great. That means that you have found your specific niche, so to speak, within the harmonizer archetype. But there's also more to the story for this archetype. So I kind of talked about this with the free spirit. Um, the free spirit training, how that one always feels a little bit tricky when you first find out that that's your archetype because it feels a little bit abstract. It feels like the most unclear in terms of who this archetype is, what this archetype looks like, and what this archetype does. And I feel the same for Harmonizer. We don't see a lot of really specific, obvious examples of this archetype out in the media or in books or in movies, right? Where we tend to see archetypes and learn who they are and how they express themselves and what they look like and how they be and all of those things. However, that doesn't mean that this archetype isn't out there. It just means that we don't have like a stereotypical mold that we think of in our mind. So with the harmonizer, I want to talk about her main motivations as an archetype and what she's really here to do and what she's programmed to believe and to think and to desire and what she's programmed to also fear. Hi, John Lynn, another harmonizer. Perfect. So, with the harmonizer archetype, the first thing that she is here to do is to harmonize, right? And what does that mean, though? What does that actually mean? So, this is a really important, like, nuance or an important, it's not semantics here. Like, the word harmonize is really, really, really important because in the low expression of this archetype, it can show up as like trying to make everything the same and make everything equal. Like equal, more so like identical. In the high expression, there's a big difference between trying to make everything identical versus trying to harmonize everything, right? So think about music. All of the different notes, all of the different instruments, all of the different parts of the whole song, they're all different, right? But they're coming together, they're harmonizing together to make this grander thing. What is that expression? The sum of the parts is greater than the whatever. I'm really bad at expressions always. If anyone knows what I'm trying to say, will you put it in the comments for me? But it's that whole thing where it's like the whole grand picture that the harmonizer is here conducting is so much bigger than the individual parts. But she recognizes and realizes that every person, every part of this whole is vital and it's not going to be the entire story, the whole picture, until they all come together and they can all harmonize together. Does that make sense? I know that this is really abstract, so we're going to talk about it and give as many examples as possible, but I just want to know if that whole concept of the harmonizing is landing with you. Sherry and John Lynn, if that feels familiar, if that feels resonant in some way, even if it doesn't necessarily make logical sense, let me know. John Lynn said, as an energy healer, my hands move around like a conductor. Yeah, I like the idea of her as a conductor, right? And we also hear this metaphor or this analogy rather used to describe projectors, right? Where they're here to guide energy. So if you're a projector and you're a harmonizer, this is even more so for you. You are here harmonizing everything. You have this ability to feel into, to understand if there's imbalance in some way that is causing disharmony. So whether that means that you're an energy healer and you can feel into and you can sense if there is some kind of physical imbalance with somebody in their body. Like let's say there's a doctor, a medical doctor, right? went to traditional medical school. Let's say that this person went to medical school at Yale University, right? Like really by the textbook, like very proven scientific, like established ways of healing. We'll say that this person is a doctor. If they're the harmonizer archetype, they might be more interested as well as serving their patients in a more holistic view. So maybe they are prescribing the medication, maybe they are performing the surgeries and the other things that conventional doctors do, but maybe they're also interested in nutrition and they recommend a holistic nutrition book to their patient, or they recommend some additional um, supplemental vitamins, or recommend that this person goes to acupuncture as well, or something like that, right? They're just going to be able to sense that there's more to the story, and that their methodology, their approach to it works, and it's great and it's perfect, yet there's still more that can be done to bring about this balance. But I do think that we tend to have a misconstrued idea of what balance is. And so a lot of times, I was having this conversation with a harmonizer archetype in a reading that we did last week. But we tend to think of balance as like, okay, now I just need to add something to my to-do list. I need to eat better. I need to work out more. I need to put time on my calendar to just chill, or to do some creative activities or something. So balance ends up being overwhelming to us when we hear that word, because what it's doing, what we tend to do with our conditioned, right, human minds, is think that in order to be balanced, we need to do more. We need to add more. We need to make more effort, and that's not it at all. And that falls short. And so we tend to have this really like negative view of balance, and if we hear that word, like run away from it. So the harmonizer is here to reframe and redefine what balance even is. And also too, an important part of finding balance through harmonizing is recognizing that that doesn't mean everything is equal, right? It doesn't mean everything is the same. And what I mean by that is with someone's life, with someone's schedule, they're going to have seasons. Let's say they're a business owner and also a mother and also just a human, right? with a social life and with nutrition goals and with other, they just want to chill, they want to relax, right? They have lots of stuff going on because they're a human being. So that might look like, though, with seasons in their life where their business takes the main priority, right? Maybe their child is in junior high and is spending a lot of time at school and with their friends and in after school activities and sports and that kind of thing. So now life has led to this season where there is more focus, there is more intentionality, there is more effort being exerted into the business part of this person's life. Or maybe this person is a new mother. So, of course, that means that that season of life is going to look like where it's all about the new baby, right? It's all about the nurturing, it's all about the taking care of the child, rather than doing like big launches in their business and all of that kind of stuff. So, the harmonizer really does recognize that life is fluid. Seasons of life are fluid. Seasons of the collective life are fluid, and things like that. So, she's never about trying to just put things on a to-do list in order to achieve balance, and she's never about trying to force anything. She's very about attuning, if you will, to the bigger picture, really feeling into the energy, really feeling into what is going on in life. So she's very, very, very accepting in the high expression of the harmonizer. She's never going to if something outside of like a circumstance that she can't control, if that happens, she's never going to fight against that. What she's going to do is just harmonize with it. She's going to align to it. She's going to say, okay, like this is what has happened. This is what's going on. I can't fight this. I can't change this. So now, like, how are we going to pivot? How are we going to reharmonize to all of this? Oh, Sherry said energy healer and musician here. That's fascinating, isn't it? But I barely passed conducting class. Still, though, the fact that you've taken conducting class, I love that. That is so cool. And you're a mental projector too, correct? There's another mental projector who I remember having this conversation with her, I think last summer, and I thought it was so fascinating. She's a musician as well, and she was talking about mental authority. John Lynn, are you a mental projector too? Let me know if I'm remembering that correctly. But she was talking about with her mental authority how she's really found like there's this acoustic thing to it, like with tuning an instrument, how you can, once you're a master at that and once you've developed your ear for that, you can like feel almost like your body can feel when it's out of tune. And that's how her mental authority has started to show up to her, which I thought was just a fascinating connection. Oh, your emotional authority. You're a generator? I'm sorry. I thought you were a projector. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. That is fascinating though, right? Tell me if that resonates with you, Sherry. But with the harmonizer, so I'm glad that you brought up the fact that you're actually a musician. With the harmonizer, with Libra specifically, one of the expressions is her love for beauty and her love for art. So she tends to show herself, not always, but a lot of times we'll see Libra as very classy, very elegant, very connected, and very into the more sophisticated things in life, right? So she tends to have a really beautiful eye for art and for colors, right? And that's part of her harmonizing gifts is your harmonizer friends, whether they're male or female, it doesn't matter, but your harmonizer friends are going to naturally know what patterns just really go well together, even if somebody else is like, I would never have put that together, but it works so well. That's the gift of the harmonizer. So the harmonizer naturally knows what colors go together. The harmonizer can naturally tell like this new up and coming artist, right? Like they're very aesthetically focused, but that just goes with the whole picture of them really caring about things being harmonized. So they're not going to have this really beautiful harmonized inner world where their outer world is bland and ugly and clashing, right? It's all part of it. It's all part of it. So when we do see Libra explained and described as the artist, right? That is where that's coming from, is that ability and that gift of harmonizing. Sherry said, I'm always amazed at how you remember so many details about us. Oh, well, I don't take it lightly that you're willing to share your chart with me over and over. I know that that's really personal. And it helps me too. I've talked about this in a couple of our trainings, but the way that I really learn human design and the way that I really learn brand archetypes is by asking other people how their experience has been with it. And so really hearing your stories and like looking at those connections in your chart, like the paper version of you versus the human version of you is how I learn it. So I guess that's why I remember it, is because your stories are like what is continually teaching me. But let me know for those of you that are watching live or are catching the replay if that's resonating with you. Do you feel like your life is cohesive? Like cohesive, harmonized, what's another good word? I guess resonant, right? Does all of that feel like, yeah, like that makes sense? So if you've ever had an experience where you're in this like really ugly environment, let's say maybe, I don't know, you're in a McDonald's like fast food establishment, right? And you're like trying to get some work done on your computer. You're like, I cannot focus here. Like it smells like grease, it's loud, it's ugly, like I have to leave. If that has ever felt like you, that's the harmonizer part. It's not a superficial, it's not like a bratty tendency at all. It's like everything has to be harmonized for you. So we can start aesthetically, or you can start inwardly and let it express itself outwardly, but that's a huge, huge, huge part of the essence of the harmonizer archetype. So let's talk about a little bit of a deeper part of her, and this is what motivates her. So with the harmonizer, she's always going to be motivated by this need and this desire, but mainly a need to feel like she's part of a group, like she's part of society, like she's part of the collective. So what I'm about to say might feel a little bit intense, so just stick with me for a second, and if it feels triggering, that's okay. You don't have to listen to it, and we'll get right back into the beautiful parts of this archetype. But in the lowest expression of the harmonizer, the actual name for the low expression of the harmonizer archetype is the orphan archetype. So that doesn't necessarily mean that this person was a literal orphan, like didn't have parents, but it means that she always felt like she didn't belong, or she wasn't wanted by her family or her caregivers. So that is an archetype, is the orphan. So if that feels like that was your childhood story, whether it was literally or you felt like my parents never wanted me, I always felt like a burden, I was the child that was in my room by myself having to figure out and solve my own problems. Like that was your orphan archetype activated, and it's really heartbreaking and it's really sad. But what happens with that, and we see this in so many storylines, and we like fictional storylines, but we also see this in a lot of people, like really successful people's stories, where they were an orphan, or there was some kind of where they felt like they didn't belong or they weren't wanted as a child. So they went on to this big successful life, but their success and their pursuit of these accolades was driven by this desire to feel like they finally belonged, like they were finally wanted, like they finally were a part of something. So that is what the harmonizer is seeking at the end of the day. Like baseline, foundationally, that is what she's here to do, and that's what she wants, and that's what she desires, is to feel like she is part of a family, like she is part of a group, like she is connected to something deeper, like she is part of the collective. So the harmonizer, another word for, or another name rather, for this archetype, I don't use this word, I don't use this name because I don't think that it really expresses her beauty and her sophistication and her depth. But another word for this archetype is the every woman or the every man, who just wants to belong, who just wants to be part of something, who just wants to be considered to be part of the neighborhood, right? Like if someone's having a party, they want to be on the list. They don't want to have to find out later that they were an afterthought, or that someone just forgot to invite them, right? They want to matter, and they want to matter as part of the group. Let me see what y'all are saying. Lisa said, yes, my environment is so important and organized and clear so I can focus and feel cozy in a way. Yep, that's the harmonizer in you. Hi, Michelle. Lisa said, I do feel like I'm always searching for my people, so to speak. Yes, yes, and yes. Yep. Literally came up for me big time last night. Yeah. Sherry said, yes, I never fit in. Took me decades to learn that my not fitting in aspects were the things that brought success. Yeah. So it's really like the orphan archetype, it's really heartbreaking, and it can feel very, very, very triggering, especially with that label, right? But really looking at, when have I felt like I didn't belong? And the thing that's fascinating about archetypes here is, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's actually how it went. It means that that was your perception of it. And I'm not putting blame or like anything on anyone here, especially with a topic that's so sensitive. But that's how archetypes work. Is like for me, for example, I'm Scorpio Sun and Scorpio Rising. So my idea of my childhood is so much different and so much darker than my parents' from like memories of my childhood. Like the things that I picked up and focused on and remembered, and the events that my mind turned into a storyline, were like not actually what happened. So that's what's really interesting about archetypes, is it can show us where, wait, where like did my mind kind of fabricate or like elaborate on a storyline that wasn't maybe the whole picture. So if that's the part, or if that feels like it's jumping out to you, that orphan aspect, it can be really healing to go back and do some inner child healing, right? Or some childhood healing, rewriting those stories, asking yourself, how can I see this in a different way? And if that is truly like what happened, and it was like the literal facts, then allowing yourself to heal from that. But it can be really interesting, and it can be really humbling to see, like, wait, that was just my archetypal programming. Like that was just my mind, like kind of misconstruing and making it more dramatic than it had to be. And again, I'm not making light of anything, especially because this is a really sensitive topic. But I think that that's a really interesting part of studying our archetypes. It's like, oh, okay, I was programmed to kind of pick up on this part of the story. Lisa said, I still get jolted into my inner child heart when I feel excluded or not invited, even when it isn't personal. Just this weekend. Yeah, it's real. That is real. And it hurts. It's a huge part of your story as a harmonizer. John Lynn said, I have the opposite issue. I made my childhood be this amazing experience when in reality it was extremely traumatic. Wow. And John Lynn, I know you do work a lot with past trauma, right? Do you do childhood, like inner child, early childhood healing work? Isn't that so fascinating how we can all have different experiences, but the root of it is all the same? Fascinating. Okay, so with the harmonizer though, like now you, big girl you, right? Grown you, capable you, strong you, healed you. What you are here to do is create connection, create unity. So in your brand as the harmonizer, a really how do I want to say it, like cornerstone part of your brand, if your authority says yes, right? All of this always is always an if your authority says yes. There is never any kind of like, you have to do it this way, or this is the only way that you can do it because you're this. Never, ever, ever is that the conversation. These are just ideas. These are just parts of you that might feel really familiar and might feel really comfortable and might feel really, yeah, like that fits. Like this feels really good. So anytime I'm introducing an idea or like a creative brainstorm or anything like that, always make sure you're running it through your authority so you know it's correct for you. But with the Harmonizer brand, really playing with the idea of some kind of community aspect for where you're showing up as far as your platforms go, right? So any kind of Facebook group, any kind of like um there's a million ways to do it. You could have it your own app where you're building a community. You could have in-person circles. I have a client that is the harmonizer, and she does like in-person women's circles, because literally the idea of gathering a bunch of women in a circle is like perfect for the harmonizer. She wants unity. She wants to imagine that her people, her group, her audience is this cohesive circle, and that none of the links are broken, right? There's no gaps in the circle, and there's also no one sitting outside of the circle. So any kind of community where people feel really welcomed, right? There's going to be a very inclusive feeling to your brand. And so generally, what we've been talking about for every time we talk about archetypes is the reason why you should care about your brand archetype is it really gives you deep insight into who your dream client is. So you as the harmonizer, you are here to serve and work with other harmonizers. So the way that your brand is going to feel to a harmonizer is when, let's say that I am searching for my people, right? I haven't found them. I feel kind of lost. I feel, let's say I'm starting a new business and you're a business coach. So I'm out there, I'm trying to find like resources, I'm trying to find tools, I'm trying to find guidance that feels good to me and feels relevant. I stumble across your brand. Maybe I stumble across your Instagram page, or I see a freebie that you're promoting. What I'm going to feel like when I first encounter your brand is, oh my gosh, yes, like I want to be here. They're gonna feel like there's this group that is waiting for them, right? It's like, oh my gosh, thank you, like you're here, like here's your seat at the table, like we've saved the seat for you. They're gonna feel like the kid in the cafeteria that is new to the school and is really scared. They have their lunch tray, right? They're looking for a place to sit, and now all of a sudden they see this table with these smiling faces who are making eye contact with them, waving them over, saying, come sit with us, we have a seat for you. That is what your brand is going to feel like to your dream people. And isn't that the most beautiful like thing that you could ever imagine? So just knowing that, it's like that is who I've never used that analogy, I don't think, before, but I really love that. So that is who you are speaking to. That is who you're here to serve, is the kid in the lunch cafeteria or the school cafeteria that feels like they're about to cry because they have no idea where they are. They have no idea who these people are. Everyone is staring at them. They feel like such an outcast. They feel like such an outsider. And then all of a sudden, they see your table with all of those beautiful smiling faces calling them over with a seat that has been saved specifically for them. So that is the essence of the harmonizer. That is what is really going to be that like connection point, that magnetic like pull. So whatever you can do to create a community aspect to your brand. Again, you could do things that are blatant community platforms like a group or an in-person something, or creating your own app like with the community vibe. But it could be more so where you are sending an email newsletter every week where you are using the word we, right? So like this is interesting um, with marketing. When we look at, is someone saying I, is someone saying you, or is someone saying we? And that little nuance, depending on someone's human design and depending on their archetype and stuff like that, can make a huge difference. So for the harmonizer archetype, the verbiage, the language is always going to be we. You are a we. You are building a relationship with your dream clients. You are building that community because that is what you all want and that's what you're longing for. And the way that the harmonizer really ultimately allows her gift of harmonizing, right? For attuning to things, for raising the vibration, so to speak, is by making sure that every single soul feels connected. That is how she harmonizes. That is her grand scale of music that she is here composing and harmonizing, is human to human connection. So like I said, if it ever feels like there is a circle of people and there's somebody sitting outside of the circle, that's going to feel disconnected for the harmonizer. She wants everyone to have a seat at the table, and that is how she ultimately allows her magic and her gifts to come out. Let me see what y'all are saying real quick. I do a lot of inner child work, inner childhood work. That's so hard. Even knowing it's not personal still hurts. I've never done inner child work. Sounds like it would be beneficial. Totally felt that orphan vibes at time. Happy to guide you in starting that process. That's sweet, John Lynn. Interesting. I've been taught that to be powerful, you need to say you. I didn't even question it. It depends. So, like if you're a sixth line in your profile, saying the word I can be really powerful because you're the role model. So, like establishing yourself in your branding and in your positioning as like, I'm the role model, I'm showing you what I'm going through, and saying I. Saying you can be really powerful if you are more like the caregiver, for example. Like the caregiver archetype will resonate well with using it that way, but we is so good for the harmonizer archetype and for the fourth line. That is not like a set in stone rule or anything like that, just another thing to play with. I don't really know anything about it, so I'll take your word for it. Yeah, okay, so let's look at your charts. I am going to dive into your tribal circuitry today. So in every single one of these trainings, we've looked at different parts of the human design chart because I think that different parts are more relevant for the conversation, which it makes it even more fun. So we're going to look at tribal circuitry today. Just a little bit of context here about what this means and why it matters and why we're looking at it is in the human design chart, you have, let me see if I can find mine. I always have a chart laying around somewhere. Is that it? Yes, one moment. Let me get it. There's a laptop and there's an iPad and there's a lamp piled on top of it. So one second. Okay. So in the chart, do you see how there are these, this is mirrored, so sorry if my finger's all over the place. There are these lines and there are these little numbers everywhere. Okay. So those numbers are called gates. Your gates essentially just mean your gifts, like your natural characteristics, your natural gifts, and all of that stuff. And then the lines that you see, they look like little roads, right? Connecting all of the shapes together. Those are called channels. And those also give us insight into your natural gifts, your consistent energy, your consistent characteristics, your consistent traits. But we can take these deeper by looking at the circuitry that these gates and these channels show up in. And the circuitry gives us context as to, well, why do you have this gift? What is this gift for? Why does it matter? Like, what's the purpose behind it? So there's essentially three types of circuitry. There's individual, there's collective, and there is tribal. So tribal circuitry is what we're looking at today. And tribal circuitry is here to really make sure that the group is healthy, that the tribe is healthy. And so I like to look at this for a lot of different, I work with circuitry in a lot of different methods and different ways with branding and with business, but I think it's important for the harmonizer archetype because she is here to find her people. And for you as the brand, for you as the leader, brands are leaders, right? So when you have your own brand, when you have your own business, when you are showing up on the internet and you're building a platform and you're building an audience, you are the leader. So what you are doing as the harmonizer is essentially building your own tribe, right? You are attracting people into your tribe, attracting people into your group, attracting people into your collective. So what you are, like what the harmonizer is here to do is make sure that her group, her people, her audience, her neighborhood, however you want to say it, her circle is healthy. She believes, and she will never, ever, ever, ever be able to see the world in any other way, but she believes that the group is only as healthy as its weakest member, right? What is that saying about a chain? A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. That kind of thing. So she's always looking at the individuals, but also at the group as a whole. So tribal circuitry just does just that, right? It is not interested in like personal pursuit. It is interested in the whole group being healthy because it's this And the high expression of tribal circuitry, it shows up as like a rising tide lifts all ships, right? Like the better that you do, the better the whole group does. The better that another group member does, the better the whole group does. But also, if a group member is suffering or struggling, then it brings down the vibe. It like brings down the harmony. I don't think that's how you say that, but it changes the harmony of the whole group. So we're going to talk about that and really how you can use your tribal circuitry gifts to make sure that your audience, your group, your people are as healthy as possible. So tell me how that sounds. Tell me if all of this is resonating with you. And if you have any questions about the harmonizer, because I do realize and recognize that that one can feel really abstract. Okay, so let me look to see what charts are here. We have a lot of harmonizers, which is great. I'm just scrolling through your charts really quick. Okay, cool. See a couple of charts shared with people that are on live. Perfect. All right, Michelle, let's look at yours. So tribal circuitry, it includes, oh, what is happening? It includes our gates and our channels. So you have gate 26 in your tribal circuitry. You have gate 50, you have gate 59, and you have the whole 3740 channel. Okay, so let's talk about the 3740 because this is super relevant. So the 3740 is basically the channel of community. Gate 37 is called the gate of the family, and it's all about the family, right? And it doesn't have to mean a literal family. It can mean your group, your people, your friends, your neighborhood, your community, whatever. But some kind of group that you belong in the high expression, right? We're looking at the high expression here. Gates, channel, circuitry, all of it can show up on the spectrum from low expression to high expression. And that's part of the beautiful work of all of this, is really recognizing, I'm in the low expression of this, right? It's a very mature thing to be able to admit that and to recognize that, but it's also beautiful and it's a gift because that means that, okay, like I can see where I have room to grow. I can see where I'm being petty here, or where I'm being an emotional child or whatever. So with gate 37, the orphan thing that we talked about, the orphan archetype, this can absolutely be a core wound of yours where it's like, I have a horrible relationship with my family. I have a horrible relationship with any kind of group I've ever been a part of. Like I've always felt unwanted. I've always felt rejected. I've always felt abandoned. So if anything like that is coming up, that is absolutely something to dive into when you're ready, right? It's going to feel really scary and triggering, but that's where the work is. That's where there's healing to be done. And the more that this goes for any archetypes, this work always starts with us first on a personal level, is healing our wounds. And the stronger we can get, and the more that we can start to shift as we heal into the higher expression, the more empathy, the more compassion, the more like embodied wisdom we have to share with our people. So with the 3740, what this means in terms of your group is you really are here. Like that is what drives you. That is what drives your brand, is the people. And I know I've been saying this, but this is even more so for you, Michelle, with the 3740, with having that whole channel. So this channel connects your solar plexus, which is your emotions, with your heart center. And the heart center is in charge of commitment, it's in charge of motivation, it's in charge of willpower, it's in charge of value, it's in charge of worth. So your brand really values things. It finds value in things that help your group. So what I mean by this is looking at your content strategy that you have, like really creating content, creating trainings, creating resources, creating offers, right? It can be paid offers too. It's not just free stuff that is here to serve your group in a big way. So any kind of trainings that you can do like this, like a live is a good example, where you show up and then people, like your people, show up and interact with you on it. So your brand is here to constantly be feeling into the needs of the group. So you can do things like polling your audience, right? Like you can do that in Facebook groups, you can do that on Instagram stories. There's a lot of different built-in tools on different platforms that allow you to literally ask your audience, what do you need? What are your questions, right? So doing things like that where you're interacting with them and you're prompting them like, hey, what do you need? Like, what are you struggling with? What are your questions right now? What feels confusing? What feels hard? I see a lot of brands do that on Instagram with those Ask Me Anything stories, right? Like you can do that every Sunday or like once a month or whatever to really collect that feedback. Like the harmonizer is here to give everyone a voice, or not give everyone a voice. She knows that they innately have it, but like basically open up a space for everyone to feel like their voice is welcome and worthy. So anything like that can be really powerful methods for really unleashing the power of that 3740. Does that resonate with you, Michelle? It resonates, but putting it into practice has been difficult. Of course, yeah, it always is. All making sense. I look forward to catching the beginning. I'm a 1-3 emotional generator. 100%. Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah. Yeah. So, that kind of feels like obvious advice for any brand is like make sure that you are addressing what your people are looking for. But for you, especially, it's going to be really responding to what your audience needs and giving them a place where they feel like they can speak up. Yeah, I love that for your chart. I'm just looking at the rest of it. Yep. And also, too, like with you being a 1-3 for your profile, that first line is all about foundations. It's all about really setting like a solid foundation, and we can project that onto any parts of life. But for your brand specifically, like looking at that, like what your audience is, what do you do? What's your business? I would love to know. Sherry said, might that be even more important for undefined 3740? I personally think that there's equal relevance between undefined parts of our chart and defined parts. That's just my perspective, though. I think that it's all super important and super equal. I don't think that an undefined part of the chart would be any more important or less important than a defined part. But I do think that it's important to study the chart more to see what that undefined energy is, just so it comes top of mind. Michelle said, I'm an accountability and productivity coach for entrepreneurs. Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. I love that you shared that because that's even more relevant. So, with the accountability part, like, oh, that's good. Yeah, so like really connecting with your group, let's see. I have so many thoughts going on right now. That just made me really excited. I always like get super excited when I can see the theme, when I can see the brand pop out, where it's like that's it. Like that's what to dive into. So, accountability is really hard, right? Like setting a goal, it's easy to be excited about it when we're excited, like at the beginning, right? When it's like new and it's fresh, it's easy to be like, yeah, like I'm gung ho. But then you get a weekend, you get a month in, you get to your first hard part or whatever, and then it's like, ooh. So, really building that safe haven for your people, right? To show up and to be able to be like, hey, I'm struggling. Hey, I've fallen off the wagon, or whatever it might be, is going to be so, so, so important. So, like, really having messaging, really having, I don't know, you could have like exciting challenges, right? Or games or something like that that really builds up that community aspect where it's like, we want you. You are worthy. You are perfect, even if you aren't hitting all of the marks, right? Like we want to hear from you. This is not about you completing everything. This is about you deciding again, right? So really like with a kid, like with a small child, how it's like we praise them, we celebrate them for even the littlest of things, right? It's not about the outcome, it's not about the end goal or the result. It's about the dedication, it's about staying committed to it. So really building up some kind of community energy around that could be super fun, right? So having like community challenges, having community, like gamifying it almost, maybe having like scavenger hunts. And these are just really random ideas. This is not like specific things you have to do, but like making it fun, making it exciting, and doing what you need to do to get people to like stay in the group, right? Stay in the community, um stay with opening your emails or showing up for the trainings or whatever it might be. And so with the harmonizer, right, like what we talked about at the beginning, I don't know if you heard this part, but the harmonizer isn't here to force balance. She isn't here to force equality in terms of life, right? She understands that life has seasons and that things fluctuate and that things are fluid. So she harmonizes rather than trying to get this perfect on paper balance. So that could be really cool for accountability and productivity. Ooh, okay. Is this how you say your name? Heloise? Is that right? That's a beautiful name. I'm a 5-1 splenic projector and cross of endeavor. I really struggle with balancing who I am and what I can bring to others, especially as an artist and a researcher. Yeah, so that is something I was saying this at the beginning, but this isn't just semantics. Balance versus harmonize. That is something for each of you if you do feel like you're struggling with that. That is something for each of you to dive into and to explore, right? What does balance mean to you versus harmonize? There's like I personally think that we have a false definition of balance that is out there. I think balance is a buzzword. I think that it's a jargony word, right? Like it's lost a lot of its meaning. And I think that a lot of us, myself very much included, see balance and we automatically think, okay, I need to do more. I need to strive more. I need to make more effort. It starts from that place of action versus harmonizing, where it's like harmonizing is like working with what is happening and creating music from it, right? Harmonizing needs to have things that are different. Like you can't have a song if everything is the same tempo, if everything is the same note, if everything is the same everything, it just becomes this flat line. So how can she really start to see the beauty in all of the chaoticness, all of the hecticness, in all of the fluctuations, and create music from it, create art from it? It's so hard for people to admit in public, so it has to be a safe place. Exactly. I agree. And for you being a third line, Michelle, like you're naturally designed to make mistakes. And they're not mistakes for you as a third line. It's part of your learning process, but it can feel like a mistake, right? Like you're naturally here to fall multiple times before you actually develop the strength to be able to feel like to actually bring in results, right? To get the goal. That is how the third line is here to operate. And it's beautiful and it's perfect. But a lot of times, just with how our society is built and what it values and things like that, it can feel like you're failing or like you're floundering, but that's not the case at all. So you showing up, you being vulnerable, and I teach this with the third line anyways, but this is especially relevant with you as the harmonizer. You showing up and saying like, hey guys, like, let me tell you about this. I set this goal to do this and I completely fell on my face and it hurt and it was embarrassing, but this is what I'm doing to regain control, right? To to try again. This is how I'm approaching it a second time. This is what I learned from this endeavor. Like Benjamin Franklin is a great example because it took him 3,000 tries to invent the light bulb. I'm pretty sure he was a third line. And his mindset with it was like, I didn't fail 3,000 times. I found 3,000 ways it didn't work. Perfect. Like this way. Oh, perfect. Like found another way it didn't work. Great. Let's try again. Oh, didn't work this way. Perfect. That's beautiful. So being a third line and really being able to show up vulnerably and messy, right? And admit to your people that, hey, like I completely dropped the ball here. Oh my gosh, what a disaster. But it doesn't work this way. Cool. Like let's try again. That can be really empowering for them and really help build that safe haven. Michelle said that sounds really good because it was great to start, but it's starting to fall a little flat. I'm launching my membership again soon. Membership is perfect for this. Perfect. Heloise said, yeah, perfect. Completely. Oh my gosh, I'm going to start a bingo card. Yeah, I love that. Wow, that's right. Learning and falling and getting up again. Yep, that's the third line. And the third line is the more that you learn about the third line, you'll see how freaking beautiful and what a gift that is in terms of your design, because with all of the failing, right? And let's put that in quotes because it's not actually failing, it's just missing the mark. You're getting so much wisdom from it, so much wisdom. Like the third line is the wisest profile line that there is, because you've gone out on the seas, right? Like, you're not just reading about a journey across the ocean. You were actually out there in the middle of it, choking on the waves. And with that, every time you survive one of those challenges and one of those quote unquote failures, you get so much stronger and so much wiser. And you really are here now to share this wisdom with the rest of us. But we just have to rewrite what that means, because, you know, society values different things. So with conditioning, the third line is taught like, I'm a hot mess, I can't do anything right, like I always fail, why should I even try, like there's no way I'm gonna get it this first time. But it is like, you really are so resilient, and you build up that longevity, and like your ability to stay with it and to hold the vision is unparalleled. So it's such a gift. And also too really creates this, like, I find with the third line, in terms of your brand and your connection with your audience, there's such a down to earthness about you. There is such a ability to connect, right? Where sometimes we see mentors and we see teachers who feel like they're on this pedestal. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just how the energy feels. And it feels like, well, I'll never, like, I could never relate to them. They're like a million miles ahead of me. They're making $1 billion a day. They're perfect. They look like a Barbie doll. Like, how in the world could I ever become that? Where the third line is like right there in the thick of things with their audience. So it can be really, really, really cool energy to build that community with. All right, let me find another chart. This is a fun conversation. I was like feeling really unclear about how the conversation would go today, because I do feel like the harmonizer can be pretty abstract. So I'm actually really loving it, which is great. Okay, Sherry, I'm looking at your chart. So you have 21 for your tribal, you have 50, you have 6 for your gates, but I don't see, yeah, obviously you wouldn't have any tribal channels. Okay, so let's talk about some of your gates. And just if anyone is joining me before, or joining me after I explain what we're looking at in the chart, we're looking at the tribal circuitry, because the harmonizer is all about her people. She's all about her group. She's all about her collective. And the tribal energy in your chart really tells us where you have these natural gifts and these natural strengths and this consistent strength to care for your audience, right? To care for your group, to care for your tribe. So, Sherry, with gate 21, how does that experience been like for you? That's in your unconscious Venus. So this one's the gate of control. This one's like in the low expression. I think we can all resonate with this and really see this energy and understand it. But in the low expression of gate 21, it shows up as a control freak, right? Trying to control every little thing. So in terms of this, like through the lens of the harmonizer, this can feel like a struggle, right? Because the harmonizer is here to really interact and be with other people. And other people are like the biggest thing on the list of the things we cannot control. So when we try to control other people, what we end up turning into is a psychopath, right? Like crazy ex-girlfriend trying to control other people, trying to control if they love you. And I'm not pointing this at you, Sherry. I'm just talking about this in general as like this archetypal energy. But when we try to control other people, we turn crazy, right? Like being the one that shows up to the party that you weren't invited to. Or like, so my daughter and I were watching Sleeping Beauty on Friday, and at the very beginning, they're having the christening or the party for the little baby Aurora, and Maleficent shows up, right? Because she wasn't invited, and then she puts this horrible curse on Sleeping Beauty, on Aurora. Like, that is the low expression of gate 21, trying to control other people. So this is really interesting in terms of your audience, in terms of your archetype, is like, how would you say you feel in terms of other people and their behavior? Like, have you felt like you surrendered to that? Like, have you accepted that? And this is a question for all of us. And if we're all being completely honest, I think especially in terms of branding and business, like, I don't know many people who could answer, yeah, like I'm totally chill. Like, other people can do whatever they want and like I trust it. But how would you say like you're showing up on that spectrum? And then in like the high expression of gate 21, the gate of control, it really is about having a list essentially of like, what can I control and what can I not control? In the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Productive People, he talks about like our spheres, right? Our spheres of influence, our spheres of control, and that kind of thing. So, Gate 21 is about really getting clear on, okay, this is my personal responsibility. I am in full control of this, like my reactions to things, right? Like that kind of stuff. And then it's going all in on those things that are in your bucket of control, and then fully releasing, fully surrendering to the things that are not your control. So there's a lot of trust that comes with this in the high expression. There's a lot of harmonizing, right? So let's say like you, just for an example, let's say you have a launch and you want 20 people to sign up for your program and 13 people do. You can't control those last 7 people that didn't sign up, right? You can't like go out and force them to sign up. If you did, that'd be super desperate and it would be no one, it wouldn't work, right? It just wouldn't work. And we've seen that. We've seen that happen. I know for sure I felt like that in a launch before where I'm like, just sign up, like freaking sign up, right? But in the high expression of Gate 21, especially through the lens of the Harmonizer, it is fully releasing and accepting that what you have right now is perfect and this is what you have to work with. So we are talking about this with Libra. The Libra archetype is often expressed as the artist, right? Because she loves beautiful things. She's very elegant. She has this like very sophisticated taste. Like a lot of times we'll see this archetype expressed as, especially if Libra is someone's midheaven, we'll see this expressed as like this old money elegance. But what was I even saying there? Oh, so with the harmonizer, the way that she really exudes and really embodies this deep sense of surrender and trust is realizing that whatever is currently happening in her life, right, whatever her current results are and her current circumstances are, that is her medium to work with. That is what she needs to harmonize. That is, she is an artist on this grand scale, and that is what she is here harmonizing and conducting, right, and guiding. And just like, you know, the movie Fantasia, like the original one, the Disney movie, I'm like getting that vision of, I haven't seen that in decades, but I'm just getting that like vision right now of, is it Mickey, of whoever it is, like all the things going on. So I don't know if that made any sense, but it's making sense in my brain. Let me see what you are saying. Yes, thank you. Oh my gosh, are you talking about me? Yeah. So if you have gate 21, it's going to feel really relevant. If you have gate 45 and not gate 21, it's still going to feel really relevant. And honestly, if you don't have either, it's still going to feel relevant, right? This is like a human plight. Control freak was result from all the early trauma. Yes, for sure. Especially, yeah, you exacerbate all of that with that orphan archetype. I like to believe I allow and encourage others to be who they are. I like to control my personal space. Perfect. Yep, that's so in the high expression of gate 21. I don't have gate 21, it's still me. Yeah, gate 21 is like, we could have conversations about that forever, for sure. Okay, I'm going to look at another chart of somebody that is on right now. Let me just scroll through. So many people are sharing that they didn't resonate with humanitarian, but now they resonate with harmonizer. Okay. Louise, let's look at yours. Okay, so you have gate 21 as well. So let me know if what I was sharing with Sherry resonated with you. And then you have 59, and you have the whole channel for the 3254. Okay, cool. So let's talk about the 3254 for you. This one's an interesting one. So our channels are just our consistent gifts. They connect our energy centers together, or rather our centers. They're not all energy centers. So they connect our centers together. Where we have defined centers and where we have defined channels is where we have consistent access to this energy. It is consistent, reliable, predictable energy for us in our lives. It doesn't mean that it's perfect energy, and it doesn't mean that there's not work to do there. We very much can be showing up in the shadow side of our defined parts of our chart, but it shows us where we're always going to, you know, have the same perceptions, see the same patterns, have the same reactions, deal with things in the same way, and that kind of stuff. So with 3254, this one is all about expansion. It can be seen as ambition. So, like Heloise, would you, first of all, I love your name so much. One of my favorite books ever is Eloise. And then I saw when you joined the group the other day, I was like, oh, I wonder if it's Eloise with an H. So that is so cool. I've never seen your name before, but I'm obsessed with it. I'm going to say it like a million times. She said, oh, yeah, feel totally called out. Good, good. I love that. It's safe here, but I love when we all feel called out. I feel like that's like, okay, I'm an adult. I see it, like I feel called out. Perfect. Now I know how to move forward. Um but okay, so with the 3254, first of all, tell me if you resonate. Like, do you feel like you're a ambitious person? Do you feel like you're career driven, business driven, like in school? Do you feel ambitious? Does that identity resonate with you? And if so, do you feel like the people that you work with are also ambitious individuals? She said completely. Yeah, so the 3254, so gate 54, the way that I like to, just like a little quick cheat sheet for all of y'all, the way that I really like to explain and teach and understand the channels is by looking at the gates that make up that channel. Every channel is composed of two different gates. So when you can understand the energy of the individual gates, it really helps you understand the bigger picture of what happens when they come together. So gate 54 is known, oh, she said, I'm doing my PhD at the moment. Perfect. That answers our question. What are you getting your PhD in? That's amazing. Congratulations. But so gate 54 is called the gate of ambition. And the low expression of this is our very old paradigm idea of ambition, right? I always think of like a corporate man, and this, sorry if I'm being sexist here, this is just what comes to mind. I always think of a corporate man in a suit who's like totally trampling on other people in order to get to the top, right? Doesn't care about any other person's well-being or their happiness, doesn't care about anything aligned with integrity or morals. All they care about is succeeding. All they care about is getting to that next level of whatever trajectory they're on. That's the very low expression, right? Where like you're completely discounting others, you are trampling, doing whatever it takes, lying, cheating, right? And we see this story all the time with all of this stuff, like all the Ponzi schemes, right? And people just, oh, it's rampant. But there's also a super beautiful, super important, super needed high expression of this gate. So when if any of you have gate 54 in your chart, regardless of your archetype, regardless of anything, just know that you really are here to be this leader into the new paradigm of what does it look like to still be ambitious, right? To still be career driven, to still be business driven, but do it in such a heartfelt, collaborative way. So what that looks like is the high expression of gate 54. So that means that you still are very, very driven, right? Like I do feel like because of all of the bad stuff that has resulted from people being overly ambitious, that the pendulum has kind of swung to the opposite end of the spectrum. And now it's almost like a taboo to admit that you're ambitious, right? Or that you have these big career goals and stuff like that. But that's not true, right? That's just a coping mechanism. That's how we all collectively have kind of redefined this so that we feel safer around this energy. But really, it's about acknowledging that part of yourself, right? Loving that part of yourself, being proud of that part of yourself. Yeah, I am driven. I am a career driven person and I am going to be successful. But the way I'm going to do it is by bringing others with me, by like the rising tide lifts all ship kind of energy. I think it's Gala Darling has a quote where it's like, I don't want to be on first class unless I'm there with all my friends, right? Like, how fun would that be to be by yourself? Like, we always hear things like it's lonely at the top. But that's not true. That's just what people have seen and what they think is true. So you're here to really like be successful but bring others with you, knowing that your success creates room for other people's success, right? And meaning also too like knowing that other people's success doesn't mean that now your success is less. It's not a pie, right? It's this like infinite thing. So the more successful people are around you, the more successful that means that you have the ability to be as well. That's a high expression of gate 54. I don't have this gate, but this is something that I feel like I always preach on when I see it because it's so something to be proud of, and I do feel like conditioning kind of like teaches us to not admit that we're ambitious people. So I'll get off my soapbox. Heloise said, I'm really ambitious, but I'm stuck in my splenic fear of failure. So many ideas, but too scared to start. I'm doing it art-based practice research and using self-portrait photography to explore mortality. Wow. That is the Harmonizer if I've ever heard her. That's amazing. I really want my work to help others, to give them permission and self exploration. Yep. And that's what Gate 54 is truly all about. It's about you finding your personal success, but also being this um, catalyst for others, right? And I really like the new messaging that we're hearing where it's like, if I see it around me, it means I'm capable of that too, right? Really being able to see, wow, this person created that. I didn't even know that was possible, but now I do, and I'm so grateful for that. And now I know I can create this for myself if I want it. Yep. John Lynn said, women are so shamed about being too ambitious. Exactly. Exactly. I'm glad that y'all resonate with that as well. Especially too if like, you have kids or you have any other kind of obligation. So thankfully that story is being rewritten, but it really does take these role models and these brave women to say, you know what, I'm ambitious and I'm a heart-led ambitious person. Okay, so with the other side of your channel, gate 32. Gate 32 is the gate of duration. And you just said, I assume that you have familiarity with this because you said the splenic fear of failure. And that is 1000% what is attached to gate 32. All of the gates of the spleen have these innate fears attached with them, like these tribal or rather primal fears, right, that are just coded in us. It's what has kept our species safe all of these centuries, but now they don't serve us so well because our brain is still telling us like, hey, you send that email, you're going to die. That kind of thing. You fail at this endeavor, you're going to die. And that's not true, but it's our brain's job. So it's this very conflicting, very it's a this internal struggle that we experience, and the gates of the spleen are perfect though because it can give us insight into like what our inner dialogue is around that. So with gate 32 is called the gate of duration. Gate 32 wants everything to be the same. I always imagine like this really flat terrain that's just the same. Like think of Kansas. Like Kansas is very flat, right? That's what gate 32 likes. It doesn't like change. It doesn't like things to be come in unexpectedly. Like it does have this fear of change, and so that can be difficult with that whole channel where it's like you want to be ambitious, right? And ambition naturally implies that things will be changing because you're going to be ascending, you're going to be scaling, right? You're going to be up leveling constantly. The terrain is naturally going to be changing. There is going to be turbulence, there is going to be struggles, and gate 32 is like la. So the way that you can work with this is like really, the thing with the splenic fears is they never fully go away. They're part of us, right? And especially as you hit new levels in your business and new levels in your life and things like that, the fears tend to show up all over again, just in a different flavor. So they're never going to, like, the goal is not to get rid of them. But what tends to happen is when you decide to go all in, right? Like you jump in head first, carrying the fear with you, feeling scared and doing it anyways, what it does is it tends to dissipate the fear a little bit. You show your brain, you show that primal part of your brain, like, hey, I sent an email and I didn't die. I was scared as hell and like I felt like I was gonna pass out, but we're okay. Like we are okay. So the more that you can do that and really treat that toddler brain of yours with that like compassion and showing it evidence of like, we did the thing and look, it's okay. We maybe felt a little bit embarrassed, right? Or like it didn't work out perfectly, but like we're alive. It's okay. So the more that you can do that, take action while feeling so scared. I remember the very first time I ever went live on Facebook, I thought I was going to black out. My eyes went blurry. Like I almost deleted it and turned it off because like I couldn't breathe. Like it was like a full on almost panic attack, but it's okay to be scared while you do things, right? It's okay to feel all your feelings and still do it. So that's like something too to kind of rewrite in our brains is like, it's okay to feel bad while I do this. It doesn't mean anything has gone wrong, but that's honestly the way to deal with the primal fears is to take the action. We can think about it, we can strategize it, we can mentally plan it all we want, but that's not going to dissipate the fear. The thing that's going to help us realize that the fear is still scary and it's still very real, but it's not as life or death as our brain is telling us is by taking action. Got to love the overthinking and feeling like I'm never prepared enough. I love the saying the comfort zone is great, but nothing ever grows there. Yeah. My comfort zone is academia, but I know I need to move out of academia to more public facing. Yeah, so with the 3254 channel, let's get back to the harmonizer part of this, but really, so this is an interesting one. So she wants to, first and foremost, this means that your drive, you have this need, you have this programming to create, like to consistently up level, which is ironic with this whole channel because that's exactly what gate 32 is like pushing against. But how can you create a life where you are continually achieving, right? But it feels sustainable for you. So sometimes we see people that are really almost impulsive, and it's not a bad thing, right? It supports their design, it supports them and all this stuff. They're like, they just jump into things and then they figure out how to swim when they're in the water. So for you, it might feel more like it might feel safer like with baby steps and things like that, where it's consistent movement rather than like big bursts of movement at a time. But just playing with your style of how you up level, playing with your style of how you set goals and go after them. Or maybe it does look like, you know what, like I'm just going to pull off the band-aid and like jump right in and do this thing before I have time to speak, if especially if you have a lot of Aries energy in your chart too. Awesome, John Lynn. I'll see you later. Thank you for being here. Okay, we are over the hour now. But I would love if any of you have questions about the harmonizer archetype or tribal energy or anything like that, feel free to put them in the comments. I'm going to send out an email with the full Libra. Yeah. And Libra, that balance thing, right? There is like, oh gosh, if I jump all into this, then like what's my personal life going to look like? If I go all in on my business, what's my marriage going to look like? If I go all in on my business, what's my health going to look like? So there is that constant like trying to recalibrate kind of thing. Sun, Moon, Rising, Mercury, and Mars. Wow, you are full Libra. I love that. Well, keep me posted on what this looks like as it unfolds for you. Lisa said yes. Yeah, so I'm going to send out an email to y'all today at some point with just a written explanation of the harmonizer, and also I'm going to consolidate it with yesterday's. We talked about the dreamer, which is Virgo rising. For the rest of the 12 days, I will be putting 2 archetypes in one email, so I'm not spamming your inbox every day. But if you haven't seen, we have a masterclass. Let me grab the link for you coming up next week. It's free. It starts Wednesday. So we have 2 sessions. It's going to be Wednesday and Thursday. And we're talking about the new paradigm platform. So what we're going to be exploring, you can register here. That way you get all the Zoom links and the replays and all of that kind of stuff. And we are going to be exploring really what your chart has to share about where you're designed to show up on the internet. Because there are a lot of different spaces where you could choose to show up, right? A lot of different strategies that you can use on one platform. So it's like, how can you ever choose? Like, how do you know? How can you trust? How can you feel confident going 100% in on your chosen platform with your chosen strategy? So this is what the masterclass is about. We're going to look at your human design environment. We're going to look at your midheaven. We're going to look at some other factors, like if you are meant to, somebody asked me this yesterday or a couple days ago. It was such a good question. Am I meant to do spontaneous lives, or am I meant to like write out and plan out my, like do pre-recorded stuff? And all of that we can get insight into, like breadcrumbs, right? Guidance in the human design chart. So we're going to talk about lots of stuff. We're going to talk about positioning. We're going to talk about messaging, just so that you can have some solid external evidence of, you know what, like I'm going to start this Facebook group and I'm going to go all in and I'm going to have faith in it. I'm going to believe. So that is what we're doing in the masterclass. Also, too, if you are interested in taking this work deeper and working with me in a group program, doors to Spellbound, the magic of client attraction, are currently open. So Spellbound is our signature program. It opens twice a year. And Sherry said, is this 2 classes or a repeat of 1 class? It is 2. It is 2 classes, so there'll be different content. I will send out the replay after, and the replay will be available just for about 2 days. So I'm going to take it down then and put it as a masterclass in my Spellbound group. But Spellbound is open. So Spellbound is all about, it's really marketing, but it's so much deeper than that. So much deeper than that. It's about creating your brand. It's about creating your business from your human design and your brand archetype, and really magnetizing and calling to your dream clients in the most aligned way possible. So we start May 6th, and doors close May 3rd or May 4th, soon, in about less than a week. So if you have questions about that, let me know. And then, yeah, it's going to be a great time. Yes, having my son in the now and wanting to be ready as a 1 is a conundrum. Oh gosh, that is a conundrum, isn't it? Yeah. Human design is so interesting. There's so many conundrums, so many contradictions, for sure. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your engagement. This was such a good conversation. I love that all of you are resonating with the Harmonizer archetype, because she's so needed. She's so relevant, but she can be hard at first to like get a mental picture. At least that was my experience with her. So I love everything that you shared about what's landing for you and what's resonating. And yeah, the Harmonizer is here to really, really help everyone just find their place and feel like they belong. So I do think it's really beautiful, clear, like direction for your brand, right? And for your brand strategy. It's about community. It's about your people. It's about creating this space where people are going to feel welcome automatically and innately. Alrighty, y'all. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you later. We're going to do the Enchantress trading tomorrow, which is Scorpio rising. So I will see you there if you want to join. If not, I'll talk to you some point. Bye.